Welcome to Parsha with Passion. We are 3 days away from Rosh Hashanah, and we can feel it in the air. The air is very, very elevated, very electric, very tense. It's like such a big day is coming. And today I want to talk to you about a topic that you might think is more appropriate for Yom Kippur. And that topic is forgiveness. Where Hashem has led me is to the understanding that forgiveness and emunah and devekas and tshuva is all the same thing. It's all has the same roots. It's like a secret treasure. Forgiveness is a treasure box. And in there, when you work on forgiveness, are the golden treasures of all the things you ever wanted. The inner peace, the self-love, the good relationships, the connection with Hashem. It's all in this treasure box of forgiveness. What are some of the things we have to forgive? Well, the people who made us feel bad as we walk around town and we have little interactions, and this one kind of like we feel weird around her, and this one she kind of insults us. The big stuff. The one, forgive the people that we interacted with at a higher level. The stuff that happens to our children, to our family, the stuff that happened to us when we were a child. I mean, forgiveness is a lifelong journey. It's not a one-step process. Typically, when you hear about forgiveness, it sounds like it's a moment in time. It goes like this: I forgave him. I forgave her. And if any of you out there have ever had your feelings hurt, or have been completely betrayed, or has had your child been completely betrayed, you know that I forgive him is not going to cut it. It's not a moment in time. We're talking about a heart and a soul, and we are complex human beings. So I forgive him, that's not going to work. How about letting it go? I just decided to let it go. Okay, you decided to let it go, but what happens the next time that you see that person? Do you feel the exact same way about him? So I think that this topic of forgiveness has been completely misunderstood. And I know that I myself did not used to understand it. I remember I had a friend who had an abusive father, and she told me, I've done my work, I forgive him, we have a great relationship, or a relationship. And I didn't know what she was talking about, and it was so memorable to me because I actually didn't believe her. I thought, okay, she's unhealthy and she has work to do. I just didn't understand. What does that mean? What work did you do to forgive your father? I don't understand. You had a horrible childhood. So then Hashem sent me my learning lessons, things that happened to me that I needed to forgive. And what I found is that to not forgive is to stay in the pain. To stay in the pain is to stay in the past. To stay in the past is to not be alive. It's not alive. Here you have the present before you, and where are you? Where your head is in the past. Not available to whatever is here in your life right now. And so, because it is so deep, it is literally, I started to understand that forgiveness is a matter of life and death. It's a matter of, okay, imagine this, like your inner world, your connection to Hashem is your source of life. And in that source of life, right in there, in that Hashem is the source of life, in that place that's inside of you, that the stories, the paradigms, the go-to imprint picture inside of yourself, there's spots that are blackened and covered up and inaccessible. So, for example, I'll just give an example. If somebody had a really horrible childhood that they did not work past, then they became an adult. Then as an adult, those places stay covered, and they're not able to access, for example, loving a child deeply, intimately, healthily, because the place of their childhood has been covered up. And so living in the past is not allowing them to live in the present. That's one example. Let's say you have a friend who hurt you, betrayed you tremendously. As long as you stay, if you don't want to look at that, if you don't want to go on the forgiveness journey with that, then that part in your inner paradigm is going to be, in your inner landscape is going to be a black, dark place that you're not willing to go and will affect your trust in all your other friendships. So forgiveness is always to your benefit. What it really means is that you're willing to heal. How is it possible? How is it possible to forgive another person? We live in a physical world. In a physical world, when you throw down a glass, it breaks. It's broken. And the same thing with people. You would think, you broke me, I'm broken. You broke my child, he's broken. This is not something I can just get over. I can't move past. No. So, lucky for us, we are not glass. Lucky for us, we are children of Hashem, children of a loving Creator, and we have an entire construct for this world, for this existence, that informs how we perceive reality. And one of those constructs is that Hashem made you for a purpose, and all the time, everything He does is to give to you and to love you and to bring out your purpose. Everything that He does. And not all of it is pleasant, as you know, but all of it is purposeful. When you go into forgiveness and you say, the first thing I got to do is to forgive the other guy, you're going to lose. You're absolutely going to lose, because in that construct, you're a glass, he broke you, you're done. But in the construct of this thing that happened is from Hashem, then actually the first place that you need to make peace with is with yourself. I know you thought I was going to say with Hashem. I thought so too for a moment there, but I realized, if I'm not at peace with myself, then what self is going to make peace with Hashem? It's a superficial conversation with Hashem. I understand, I accept. Who's the I? Maybe the I is still in self-loathing and blame for everything that happened. So let's break this down further. He broke you. You're not glass, right? So what are you? Well, let's see. Maybe when you got into that friendship, you were not good with your boundaries. You let things happen that shouldn't have happened. Maybe you didn't do anything. Maybe this is all about the other person, or mostly about the other person, and you'll find out what your part was many, many, many years later, But subconsciously, there's a part of ourselves that blames ourselves for everything that happens, and that's why sometimes it's very easy for people to go into blame and anger of someone else, because that's a much easier, they'll flip. I hate the other person or I hate myself. And it's very, very sophisticated and mature to work on healing yourself and then healing the other person, because the easiest place is anger. So the first place you've got to start is with yourself. When I work with women in my coaching practice, the thread that I see with so many women is a thread of self-loathing. I can't stand myself. I just can't stand myself. And I'm telling you, I work with the most awesome women, talented, super duper women. When I say super duper, I mean they're fun, they're funny, they're interesting, they're great women. They can't stand themselves, and this is childhood and this is whatever, but that just is what it is. So as long as you can't stand yourself, every situation that you're going to be in is going to feel like it's all about you. It's going to feel like another failure and another time that you let yourself down. So the first place you got to work when you work on forgiveness is self-love, building yourself up, getting yourself back on your feet. You're not glass. You don't just get broken. You're actually more like a piece of clay, and someone's pushed the piece of clay one way and kind of squished it, and now you get to reform it, and you can make it into anything that you want it to be. You can take that squishing and use it as a time to reform and restructure and firm up your walls. And this kind of building yourself is a huge step that's very, very often overlooked when we talk about forgiveness. We're always talking about the other person. But how many people do you read about that, were homeless or abused, and then they grew up and they helped homeless or abused people? The things that happen to us are directly in order for the work of building ourselves. They're there for that. And sometimes to fix ourselves if we have issues. You know, who doesn't have issues? But you know what I'm talking about. So building yourself. I remember when I was, you know, in a very complex situation, I needed to rebuild myself from scratch. I'm not even joking. From scratch. Who am I? What are my lines? What are my boundaries? Who do I want into my life? How do I want my Shabbos table to look? What kind of things do I want to make videos about? Like everything. Everything. And start again and start seeing yourself. Allow a space to see yourself from an unbroken place. Because if you live life as a victim, you're never going to find your greatness. You're always going to be putting the power into the hands of the one that hurt you. You know, I did not see this, but there's a woman named Lizzie Vasquez, and she has a condition where she has no fat, which you would think is lovely. It's actually not. It means that she pretty much looks like a skeleton with skin. And she actually has a beautiful chen in her eyes. She looks like a great person. And I have only heard her speak once or twice. But at some point, someone put out a video on the internet called The Ugliest Girl in the World. And it was a video about her. Now imagine this video getting thousands of hits, and it's about you being the ugliest person, the ugliest girl in the world. It's horrible. And my daughter told me the other day that she gave an entire TED Talk all about how she is not letting that video define her. She's got better things to do. She is more than that, and she's not going to spend her energy and her time living with that one story. So there's that inner journey. She had to find, I'm sure that she had to go through, you know, some thought processes, some healing, some mourning, some rebuilding. And you know, when someone stands up and speaks, you know, before thousands of people, that's usually a clear sign that there's a pretty serious story behind there. So if that was her talk, I'm not going to let this define me. You better believe that it felt like it defined her. You better believe that it was very, very hard. And lots of difficult things do happen to us. Forget difficult, painful, brutal, whatever. It's gullus. You know, to not let those things define us is step number one. And to rebuild so that by the time you've rebuilt and you've come out of that, you have your own story. I would love for each of us to have our own story of forgiveness. So step one is to notice that you need to forgive yourself. And part of that process of forgiving yourself is building yourself up post that experience, like a piece of clay, reshaping yourself, not like a piece of glass that's broken on the floor. And that comes into the treasure box of forgiveness, of why forgiveness is intertwined with emunah, because at the root of it, we believe that that exact thing was meant to happen. The person who smushed the pottery, that was supposed to happen because Hashem had something amazing in mind, that it was time for this piece of pottery to become something else. What happens when we don't forgive? One of the things that happen, like we spoke about, is that there is corners of your heart and places in your heart that are dark and closed, unavailable for relationships, unavailable for the light and the love of Hashem, and that emunah, that connecting to Him completely with trust, that falling back into His arms. Another thing that happens is that we affect one another. We are all connected. We're all one body. So I'll tell you a story that happened to a friend of mine just recently, about a year ago. So she had been in a relationship with a guy. I guess she was just starting to date, and it was a long relationship. And he was very mean to her. He was very, very, very mean. It wasn't a shidduch type relationship. It was a different guy in a relationship, and he was mean. He would tell her that she's fat. He would tell her, "Oh, let me take a picture of you so I could Photoshop you and fix you because you're fat," and just generally mean and abusive. And one day he found someone else, and then he just left her in the dust. And that was how that relationship ended. And years passed, and the girl became more serious in her Yiddishkeit, and she grew up, and she's a wonderful person. And she started to think, I wonder what's happening to him, with him. I wonder if he's having kids. I don't know. Somehow she started to think about him because she had heard that he ended up marrying that girl, poor girl. And about a week after she's thinking about him, she gets a phone call. And the phone call says, it's him. He's calling from Israel. And he says to her, Alana, and she says, yeah, hello. And he says, listen, I need to speak with you. I have to ask you, do you still resent me? I realize that I treated you so badly. And she said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I do resent you. And he started to cry. And he said, I'm sorry, I was terrible. I remember how I treated you. I shouldn't have treated you like that. And I want you to know that my wife and I were married for 4 years, and we don't have any children. And I am sure, I feel that it's connected to how I treated you. And she felt very, very bad. And basically, she told him, I forgive you. I forgive you. I give you a bracha. I'm done. I forgive you. Please go with bracha. I don't want to hold back anything from you. And he offered to, give her money, give her presents, whatever she wanted. She said, I don't want anything. I just don't want to be a cause of you not having bracha in your life. So that's how that ended. And then a year and a half later, he and his wife gave birth to a little baby girl, and they named her Ilana. Could you believe? This story came up at my Shabbos table just a week or two ago, and I was saying that I'm going to give a talk about forgiveness, not this talk, another talk. And I said, please, please write up your story. So she wrote it up for me, and listen to what she wrote after that. And I just want to give a little note about that. That story is not meant to be insensitive to anyone who's experiencing infertility. We don't know why anything happens. That was just a story. It's not the story. It's not an explanation. Please don't take any weight from it. The point of that story is that when we offer forgiveness, we change another person's life. And that if we don't ask for forgiveness, we will continue to suffer for what we did. We're holding back. Hashem counts the other person's pain against us. And this is what Ilana wrote afterwards. Listen carefully. We have more power than we can ever imagine. We can release our hearts and muscles from deep-seated tension rooted in bitterness, pain, and resentment. We can stop seeing ourselves as victims, and through this actually make our reality better. We can change our lives purely by what we tell ourselves about the experience we have. Let's just say that one more time. We can change our lives purely by what we tell ourselves about the experiences we have. We experience through what we perceive, and the truth is that we give our power away every time we play the victim. Every time we blame others, every time we pity ourselves and allow the pain to absorb into our bodies, into our souls, into our world. We have a planet where we live on completely alone, our heads, which we can improve and, so to speak, hang beautiful pictures, light candles, create serenity, or we can create a stark, stripped prison with furniture nailed to the floor. No warmth, no light, no safety. We have control. Amazing. Amazing how forgiving him freed her up to understand that she doesn't have to go through life as a victim. Now let's be clear about this story. What the guy did was not right. Forgiving someone doesn't mean that what they did was wrong. It does not mean that. And please, please be very clear about that. We are not in the business of saying what's wrong is really right. Let it go. It's okay. It's not okay. Someone has abusive behavior, it is not okay. It is just not. And feeling anger about that is healthy. It's good. It's important. If you don't feel the anger when you are violated, then what happens is you can't be trusted with yourself. There is a little person inside of you, a little girl, that needs to be protected, and that's counting on you, the adult, to protect her. And if people violate you and you say, that's okay, then you're actually not protected and you can't count on yourself. So that anger is a really healthy anger. Not only that, but when you if you don't address the real feelings that came along with whatever happened, then you're telling the little girl in there who did experience what happened, who experiences it without a filter, be quiet, go away, I can't hear you. And as you try to forgive yourself and go deeper and reconnect with yourself after an experience, you don't have a safe self to reconnect to. Because at the bottom, you're not allowed to be, you're not allowing yourself to be. So it is good to feel your feelings, it is good to call a spade a spade. If somebody did wrong, they did wrong. And then the goal is to not live there for your whole life. You want to keep going deeper and deeper, because ultimately forgiveness is a life's work. I went over to visit our friend Ronit. She should live and be well and have her fush shalema. Holy, holy, holy woman, Ronit Basadasa Esther. And I told her about this talk. And this talk that I'm, God willing, going to be giving. And as I'm telling her what I want for people, I'm telling her my intentions for people. I say, Ronit, what I really want is for people to go on a healing journey. I want people to look at their lives and look at their relationships and see and start to heal. We don't have to live in pain. And all this, imagine what a Kiddush Hashem can make. Imagine the shalom that will be in the world if we have shalom in our hearts. I want people to have something that they could hold on to, that they could look at these experiences and with a much broader vision, with an understanding like, it's for you, my darling. I know that it hurts, but it's for you. And Ronit is very sick, and she had tears in her eyes, and she was crying, and we were sitting together, and she tells me, it never ends. This is life's work. This is your whole life's work. Forgiveness is peeling away the layers until you get to that pure little girl, the one that was it before, the one that was before she was hurt. And for some people, that's sometimes in utero, you know. Some people have very, very hard lives, and thinking back to babyhood can also even be a painful thing. But there was a time where it's just the neshama that was completely available to emunah completely, to connection with Hashem, to a trusting, baby-like serenity. And we peel away these layers. And we get back to that place. And that's why forgiveness is not just a letting go. It's a whole long process. And when I give you an example of Ilana letting go, there are moments within the process that are like quantum leap moments. There are. But then there's also the work afterwards. You know, I remember when I had a quantum leap moment, and I forgave someone, and it was like amazing. It was so big. It was so big. I literally was shaking, sat on my floor crying, because I recognized, my gosh, I'm so flooded with peace that I haven't had in so long. But that quantum leap moment came after a year or two of work. So sometimes you have the quantum leap moment, and then you have the work of sorting it out, and sometimes you have the work of sorting it out, and you're gifted with a quantum leap moment. I'm going to give you another example of a quantum leap moment over here. Okay, so this is this is a controversial example. People are different, so I'm not giving this as advice for you. I'm showing you this as an example of someone who completely changed the course of their life by being willing to forgive. Okay, so this girl, this woman, was married, and the marriage was tough, and the guy went off the derech, and they had a child, and things were very complicated and angry and bitter, and angry and bitter, and the child between them, and blame on both sides. Very, 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 very bitter. And for some reason, this, they had a connection. And so this, the woman, just on his birthday, she would say, "Happy birthday." Then one day, this is how it goes. She sent a text, "Happy 40th." And he actually wrote back. He said, "Thank you. I appreciate you remembering. I'm going through a very difficult time." She says, "I'm sorry to hear that." Then she said to him, Let me know if you want to try a wild, crazy experiment, turning the clock back 20 years and letting go of the anger. She just said that. Remember, in the thick of things. This is not like a movie. This is not a book. This is the real deal. Like, here's someone who just was yelling at you. And she's seized with this quantum moment of, let's just let go. And on the text, she actually copied her texts and sent them to me. And it was 7 minutes that she had to wait for his response. 7 minutes where she was going crazy. What's he going to say? She just put herself out and made herself so vulnerable. And that's what we're so scared of being vulnerable, of being real. And listen what he said. I would love that idea. I hate living with this anger, regret, sadness, and remorse. It's very destructive to both of us. Sorry for all the pain I've caused you. Could you imagine? She put herself out with so much strength. And only 7 minutes later, she broke through worlds. She broke through decades. And he says, sorry for the pain I caused you. And she said, thank you for that. I'm sorry too. And so he said, thank you for reaching out. It's a hard burden to carry around. Then he says, I really want this. I want this peace. And she says, I know it's been so much suffering. I'm ready for it to go away. They're sharing custody of a child. And he says, it's been really hard for me too. I've been suicidal for months now. Let's figure out a way to forgive each other. That would be great. That was the beginning of a life for their child. No, I understand not everyone could have that, Not every man or woman is open or available to that. But that idea of just letting go, of just letting it go, it's the hardest thing in the world. We feel like shattered glass. We feel like you broke me. I can't. What am I supposed to do? Like glue myself together again? Or we do sometimes feel like I just glued myself together. I'm like this broken, distorted thing. That's what you made of me. That's all that's left of me. But we don't have to look at ourselves like that because we're not. We're so much more than a piece of glass. We have infinite powers of greatness and emunah within us. And we can change everything around us in a minute. And of course, there's healing afterwards. But I'm guessing that in this case, a lot of the work was done beforehand. You can only suffer so much. And it's amazing how much love there is available on the other side of everything. So since I've been in this topic, I feel like, I don't even know, guys, I feel like Hashem is just sending me people and sending me new avenues, things of thought, of wisdom, things I did not even know existed. You can look it up, please. I just made for Hijab Brood a whole talk show on forgiveness, interviewed the most beautiful people. And one of the people who called me up, let me find her over here. One of the people who called me up had a story to tell me. And I asked her if I could share it. So this should be a schus for her mother who passed away about last year. And I'm talking now about relationships, but what's the deepest relationship? A relationship with a parent. So she says, to say I had a complicated relationship with my mother is an understatement. For those who know me well, you know the years of struggle we had together. My mother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she was in her 20s and only verbally acknowledged this diagnosis to me when she was 68. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mentally ill mother was my primary caregiver. My father started over on the other side of the country, running as fast as he could from this challenging situation. Well, their relationship had been a very complicated roller coaster ride, and she did move across the country after she got married and became frum. And then her mother was very, very sick, and she was dying, and she felt like I need to go, I need to be there with my mother. So I bought a ticket, I put my new job and my life on hold, and I spent the majority of days, this was last year at this time, the majority days of the days of tshuva beside an inpatient hospice unit, watching my non-communicative mother die. Now, there she was with her mother, And she had to fight because her mother was going to be cremated, and she wanted her mother to have a proper Jewish burial, and it was a whole thing, and it was crazy to be there while her children were not there, and she was far away from them. And she called her rabbi, and the rabbi said, and she has this in quotes, "Maybe Hashem orchestrated this so that you would have a chance to forgive your mother." I have to read her words because they're so honest. She's such an honest person, and I did ask her permission. She says, boom, there it was. Forgive my mother who had never really been a mother. Let her pass peacefully into the next world. Forgive her wanting to be cremated. Forgive all the hurts and the pains of sadness of 43 years of insanity. It seemed impossible. Until I tried. When I tried bedside to speak what was in my heart, to pray to Hashem for forgiveness for myself and for my mother, I kept coming up empty. I realized that over the years of therapy and pain, I had already come to a place of serenity. I no longer had the expectations of her to be a mother, and I had already mourned that loss so many times that over the years I was able to let go of my anger and sadness and forgive her bit by bit. Well, it continues, and basically where she came to with this is that now, a year later after her mother passed away, she decided to make a gemach for her mother. And it should be a merit for her mother. And she feels and felt that this would be an act of true kindness and the ultimate aliyah for her mother's neshama. And she says, Mom, I know you were sick and limited, and I know you did the best you could with what you had. Maybe now you will have peace. My intention is that you will receive the kindness that I do in your honor as a message of love and forgiveness. We are energetically connected. My work in this world is felt in your world because my intentions connect us eternally. I cannot live with joy, serenity, and wholeness until I can metaken the brokenness in my neshama from our struggles. Last paragraph. It is Elul, a time for giving and receiving forgiveness. In having this momentary insight, I realize that forgiveness is an active desire to let go. A process of action to move on and not to blame. My desire to go down a path of wholeness and healing only starts when I can actively accept my mother's brokenness and try to be loving anyways. But it can't always be accomplished in one day or a week. It takes work, effort, and commitment. It does not happen in one moment. When we decide, okay, this is what we are going to do, it is a process. Forgiveness is about willingness to be engaged in the process and not run away from it. In essence, forgiveness is a full-time job. So beautiful. This is the work that people are doing now. And I don't just mean now, I mean now. There's so much work to be done in this world to fix the world, to bring geula, to bring redemption. And I believe that the work of forgiveness, which is the work of healing, is the work of today. It's the work that will mend our broken hearts, the world's brokenness, all the wrongs will be fixed through this work. And so my prayer is that that my words reached your heart. You know, I wish you were all standing in front of me. I hope my in-person talk is more powerful. I'm standing here. I'm talking to a video. I'm hoping that you feel me. I'm being amazed by the people that the stories that I heard, and I want to hear more stories. Send me your stories. Send me your struggles. Tell me where you're up to. You know, there's a story of a king, and the king said, whoever wants my princess just needs to do one thing. You need to climb up this 1,000-story staircase. And so man after man came, and they would climb up the staircase. And when they got to the 600th floor, they were dying, and they went down. And then the next guy tried, and he got a little bit higher. And the next guy tried, and he got a little bit higher. And then there was a regular guy, and the regular guy said to himself, you know what? If the king says it's possible, it's possible. And so when he got to the 600th floor, He was exhausted, but he didn't stop. He just kept saying to himself, if the king says it's possible, it's possible. If the king says it's possible, it's possible. And he was huffing and he was puffing and he was panting and he was going one step at a time. If the king says it's possible, it's possible. And when he got up to the 900th floor and he thought he was going to pass out and die, an elevator appeared. And it took him up to the 1000th floor where he met the princess. And that's what the work of forgiveness is like. It's not on us to finish the work. We don't know where the work ends. We actually don't know. When you think of someone who you need to forgive, you don't know how it's possible. It's the opposite of how human nature works. It is a supernatural thing. And that's why you just do the work, and Hashem will take you that last bit. He will take you, will give you quantum moments. He will give you insights. And most importantly, the point is the journey. The point is not the end. The point is not the moment of forgiveness. The point is all the cleansing and the processing and the healing that you have done on your way to forgiveness. The person that you are becoming. I want to end with a tefillah. I wrote this tefillah from my heart, and I want to share it with you, and hopefully it will mean something to you, and it would be a great schus for me if it means something to you, and you can use it in your own journey, or maybe even write your own tefillah. Okay, here it is, and if you want, you can just ask me. I could write it down. Okay. Hang on a moment. Okay. Here it is. To my Creator, the Almighty, the one who can do anything. Again, here it is. To my Creator, the Almighty, the one who can do anything, I need your help. I have pain to release, resentments to give up, stories that hurt me that I can't understand. Help me. Help me to see your guiding hand even in the pain. Help me to see the big picture when I am stuck in smallness. Help me to find my higher self, the one unencumbered by fear, the one that reflects your great plan for me. Please guide me. Bring me on a healing journey. I want my heart to be at peace, my soul to be light, my relationships to be whole, and my life to be in service of you. Bring me a place of understanding and peace, to a place where I can clearly see that everything that you send me is for my ultimate benefit. Let me fall into your waiting arms, forgiving myself, forgiving the other, and forgiving you for all that transpired. I am ready to live the great life you have planned for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a very good Shabbos. Kasiva v'chasima tova. A meaningful Rosh Hashanah. We should stand together with open hearts, listening to the shofar, letting the sound pierce through our resentments and pain and stuckness into a place of great expansiveness, falling back into Hashem's waiting arms for a beautiful, sweet new year. Bye-bye.